Have you ever wondered why the older you get, the harder it is to connect with people? Why deep conversations feel rarer and silence, once peaceful, now feels like a test? Maybe you've noticed that the more you understand, the less you belong. It's not because something's wrong with you. It's because clarity has a cost. Most people are terrified of being alone because solitude forces them to meet the one person they've been avoiding their entire lives, themselves. But here's the paradox. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's evolution. Schopenhauer, Jung, and Nietzsche all discovered the same haunting truth. The path to real intelligence, creativity, and self-awareness always passes through isolation. In a world addicted to noise, distraction, and validation, solitude is no longer a weakness. It's an act of rebellion. In this video, we're going beyond Schopenhauer's idea of the intelligent loner. We'll explore why solitude is not just a preference, but a psychological and existential necessity. A process that strips away illusion, redefines identity, and transforms thought into vision. You'll learn why people who choose solitude often appear distant, misunderstood, or too intense, and why that distance might actually be the sign of awakening. If you've ever felt disconnected from the crowd, tired of surface-level talk, or secretly drawn to silence, you're not broken. You're just starting to see the world as it really is. Stay till the end, because once you understand the existential power of choosing solitude, you'll never look at being alone the same way again. You're not too sensitive. You're not antisocial. You're exhausted by seeing what others edit out. In most rooms, conversation isn't about truth, it's about comfort. When you notice the small performances, the status games, the borrowed opinions, the careful avoidance of hard questions, connection starts to feel like acting, and acting is tiring. Here's the part most people miss. Deep perception doesn't just change what you think, it changes what everyone around you feels. When your presence nudges a group toward uncomfortable reality, the brain treats that as a threat, not a gift. Neuroscience shows that when people face information that challenges core beliefs, the brain leans on emotion and threat circuits, including the amygdala and insula, to protect identity, more like defending a body than revising a belief. That's why hard truths often meet defensiveness, not curiosity. And when the group senses, often wordlessly, that someone in the room won't play along, it triggers a second layer of resistance: social evaluative threat. Being judged, or merely feeling judged, reliably elevates stress hormones like cortisol. Our biology reads, "I might be excluded," as danger. This is why even polite pushback can make a room go cold. The stakes have shifted from ideas to belonging. If you've felt a sudden chill after saying something honest, you weren't imagining it. We're a species built to avoid exile. Brain imaging even shows that social exclusion recruits some of the same circuitry associated with physical pain, explaining why not being invited in can ache more than being proven wrong. Carl Jung gave the psychological X-ray for this dynamic. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. In other words, when your clarity provokes irritation, it's often because it reflects a blind spot the group is protecting. You didn't cause the discomfort, you revealed it. So you pull back, not out of contempt, but out of conservation. You're not avoiding people, you're avoiding the performance tax that comes with pretending not to see. The loneliness you feel isn't emptiness, it's the cost of refusing to go blurry on purpose. To fit in, you're expected to play a part, not the role of truth teller, but the role that keeps things smooth. Most groups value harmony over honesty and predictability over precision. Soren Kierkegaard said it simply: the crowd is untruth. Once we're in a crowd, we stop answering to our conscience and start answering to the audience. There's a biological piece to this. When people hear something that threatens their core identity, politics, morals, tribe, the brain doesn't calmly weigh the facts. It flips into self-protection. Regions tied to threat and emotion light up, the same systems we use to stay safe. So a hard truth doesn't just sound wrong, it feels dangerous. That's why careful, evidence-based points can get the same reaction as an attack. Then comes the social layer. Being judged by a group is one of the most stressful experiences a person can have. Your body reads, "I might be rejected," as real danger. Heart rate goes up, stress hormones rise. You shift into protect my status mode. In that state, People prefer what keeps the peace, even if it isn't true. Put those together and you get the everyday punishment of the non-performer. Hold your ground on what's true instead of what's comfortable and watch what happens. The sudden silence, the quick change of topic, the joke at your expense, the comment about your tone. It's not a debate anymore. It's the group protecting its glue. So if you've ever said something precise and watched the room go cold, you didn't imagine it. You stepped off the script. And most groups will defend the script at all costs, even if that means sidelining the one person trying to keep the conversation honest. You're not difficult, you're just refusing to act. You can't think deeply when your mind is always on. In every ping chat and check-in, a small part of you peels away from the thing that actually matters. Psychologist Sophie Leroy has a name for the drag you feel when you switch tasks and can't fully land on the next one: attentional residue. Her experiments showed that when you move on too quickly, part of your attention stays stuck on the previous task. Your performance and focus drop until that residue clears. In short, every switch leaves a smudge on your mind. Interruptions don't just slow you down, they change how you work. In a classic field study, Gloria Mark and colleagues found that people compensate for interruptions by working faster. But the speed comes with a bill: more stress, more frustration, more time pressure, and more effort. You look busy, but you think worse. And it doesn't even take a full conversation to derail you. A simple phone notification, a buzz you don't answer, can measurably hurt performance on an attention-demanding task. That tiny alert hijacks working memory as if you'd actually picked up the phone. This isn't weakness, it's how human attention works. Under the hood, task switching itself has a real cognitive cost. Lab studies on executive control show reliable switch costs. When you alternate rules or tasks, reaction times slow and errors rise, because your brain must reconfigure goals and activate new rules each time. Translation: multitasking is just rapid serial switching with penalties attached. Schopenhauer would call this the economy of attention. Your mental energy is a finite budget. Every extra tab, message, or meeting takes a cut. Most of us spend that budget on being available, then wonder why our thinking feels thin. For deep thinkers, the math is simple. Unnecessary conversations are paid for with clarity. So if you've noticed your best ideas arrive when you're unreachable, that's not a quirk, it's a signal. Depth needs unbroken time and low noise. Constant connection may keep you visible, but it also keeps you shallow. The work that matters won't survive on leftovers. Silence isn't nothing, it's room, the kind your mind needs to stretch out. When you're not juggling messages, meetings, and noise, your brain shifts into its natural, idle mode, often called the default network. That's when self-reflection, memory, and new ideas start to click. Less noise outside means more signal inside. Quiet time isn't wasted time. A few minutes of simply sitting after you read, learn, or think helps your brain lock in what matters. Think of it like hitting save. If you jump straight from task to task, or from a hard thought to your feed, your mind doesn't get the chance to file the insight. Short, undistracted pauses make ideas stick. Creativity works the same way. Good ideas rarely appear while you're forcing them. They show up when you push, then pause. Take a walk, stare out a window, sit with the thought. That pause isn't laziness. It's the space where separate pieces finally connect. This is why solitude isn't the same as isolation. Isolation is being cut off against your will. Solitude is stepping back on purpose so your mind can breathe. Jung would say this is where the deeper parts of you finally have room to speak. And Kierkegaard would remind you, only when you stand apart from the crowd do your thoughts stop getting edited by the crowd. If silence makes you uneasy, that's normal. In silence, you meet yourself, your real priorities, the questions you've been avoiding, the choices you've delayed. That discomfort is information. It's your mind telling you there's work to do that can't be done while you're performing. Treat solitude like a workshop, not a retreat. Give yourself unbroken minutes with no inputs. Let your brain connect, consolidate, and create. In that empty space, your best thinking finally has somewhere to land. You wanted quiet. Instead, you ran into yourself. At first, solitude feels like rest. Fewer pings, fewer people, more space. Then the noise outside drops, and the noise inside gets louder. Unanswered questions surface. Old memories show up. Doubts you could mute in a busy week now sit across from you and stare. it feels like the silence turned on you. It didn't. It just stopped protecting you from what was already there. Kierkegaard called this feeling dread, not fear of something outside, but the dizzy awareness that you are free and responsible for your life. No script, no crowd, no one to blame. That openness can feel like standing on a balcony with no railing. Many people step back at this point and fill the room with sound again, then call it balance. But what they're really doing is postponing the meeting with themselves. Jung described the same turning point in different language. Real growth isn't daydreaming about being better. It's letting the dark material you've avoided become conscious so it can be worked with. In everyday terms, the stuff you push down, envy, grief, anger, shame, longing, doesn't vanish. In solitude, it finally has room to speak. That's why the calm breaks, not because solitude is bad for you, but because it's doing its job, removing distractions so the unfinished parts of you can knock on the door. This descent has familiar signs: racing thoughts, the urge to reach for your phone, sudden self-criticism, tightness in the chest, a strong pull to get busy. None of these mean you're on the wrong path. They mean you've reached the work. Most people turn back here and call solitude lonely. What they really mean is unfiltered. The honest move is simpler and harder. Stay a little longer. Name what shows up. Write it down. Take a slow walk without headphones. Let the first wave pass. On the other side of that discomfort is the first real clarity you've had in months. Solitude didn't betray you, it stopped lying to you. And once you cross this threshold, you stop needing life to be loud to feel okay. Clarity doesn't feel like a warm light. It feels like losing your excuses. Once you see how a room is run, who is performing, what is unsaid, which beliefs are there to keep the peace, you can't unsee it. You can still smile. You can still show up, but a part of you stops playing along. Nietzsche warned about this trade. He contrasted the last man, the comfortable, safe, sleepy conformist, with the Übermensch, the person who takes full responsibility for shaping a life of meaning. Waking up moves you out of comfort and into authorship. It's thrilling, but it costs you the easy belonging that comes from doing what everyone else does. Schopenhauer understood the cost too. Much of our social ease comes from shared illusions. Little stories we agree to believe so we can feel close. Clarity removes those cushions. You don't hate people, you just can't pretend as easily. That gap can feel like alienation. You're in the group, but not of it. There's also a psychological reason this stings. Philosopher Thomas Metzinger argues that the self we feel inside is a model the brain builds. Useful, but not the whole truth. When you become meta-awareness, when you watch your thoughts, drives, and identities at work, you notice how constructed they are. That recognition can be freeing. I don't have to be my reactions, but it can also feel like ground giving way. Then what is really me? In plain terms, seeing the strings can make the puppet show less fun. This shift shows up in ordinary life. Jokes that once landed now feel mean. Habits that used to soothe now look like numbing. Busy schedules look less like success and more like avoiding silence. You're not suddenly superior. You're simply out of alignment with parts of life that depend on not looking too closely. Here's the good news. You don't lose everything. You swap. You trade ease for vision, approval for honesty, noise for signal. The ache you feel is the space where old comforts used to live. Let it ache. That space is where a different kind of connection can grow, one based on truth, not performance. Once you see the machine, you don't have to play along. You can choose to build something better. Stepping back isn't giving up, it's gearing up. Think of solitude like fasting for the mind, not always pleasant, but cleansing. You remove distractions, then watch what stays. What stays becomes your core. History keeps proving this. Socrates didn't crowdsource his conscience. He followed it to the end and chose hemlock rather than betray his principles. Galileo spent his final years under house arrest, but the clarity he guarded in isolation became common sense for the rest of us. Hypatia taught reason in a time of frenzy and paid with her life. Her legacy outlived the mob. Nietzsche wrote most of his fiercest work in near-total solitude and changed the way we talk about values, power, and meaning. Alan Turing cracked the Enigma code in rooms most people never entered. His quiet work helped end a war and birthed modern computing. None of them hid from the world. They withdrew to do the work the world later needed. Psychologically, this makes sense. When you're always in a crowd, you think for the crowd. Quick, safe, familiar. When you're alone long enough, you think for reality. Slow, exact, often uncomfortable, yet durable. That's the upgrade solitude gives you. It moves you from reactive opinions to tested judgments, from cleverness to wisdom. Carl Jung described individuation, the process of becoming a whole person, as a path that often requires stepping away so the deeper self can take shape. Myths across cultures echo the same pattern. The one who leaves the village returns with medicine. The leaving isn't the point, the return is. So no, solitude isn't retreat, it's recalibration. You're not running from people. You're shedding the parts of you built only to please them. You come back leaner, clearer, steadier, able to help without needing the room to clap. That's power, not control over others, but control over yourself. And once you have that, you can serve from truth, not performance. Solitude wasn't the destination, it was the training ground. He stepped back to clean the lens. Now you see. The question is what you do with that sight. Start with sovereignty. You re-enter life on your own terms. Clear boundaries, clear values, a clear no. You don't need the room to agree before you act. As Thoreau put it, the man who goes alone can start today, but he who travels with another must wait till that other is ready. You're done waiting. You move first because your compass is internal. This isn't isolation, it's integration. In Jung's language, individuation isn't running from the world. It's becoming whole enough to live in it without wearing a mask. You bring the self back into the marketplace. Same streets, same faces, different center. You can join, help, build, and lead without borrowing your identity from the crowd. Practically, that means 3 simple moves. 1. Speak where it lands. Share your best ideas with people who are actually listening. You're not hiding, you're planting in good soil. 2. Translate depth into clarity. Keep the essence, lose the jargon. If a truth matters, there's a clean way to say it. 3. Choose service over performance. Do the useful thing, not the applause thing. Measure by outcomes, not reactions. Expect some friction. You will still feel different because you are. But difference isn't distance. You can stand beside people without dissolving into them. You can care without copying. You can love without lying. This is what serving without belonging looks like. You bring the medicine you found in silence to a noisy world without needing the noise to validate you. Solitude didn't make you superior, it made you steady. And from steadiness, you can give the one gift the crowd can't produce on its own, truth spoken with a calm heart. You're not lonely, you're aligned. Now return and build what you once went searching for. You weren't abandoned by the world, you outgrew its noise. Solitude didn't break you, it stripped you down to what's real. Now you know, comfort is cheap, clarity is costly, and you are willing to pay. The path ahead isn't crowded, that's the point. The crowd is untruth. If this hits something you couldn't name, tell me what changed for you. And if you're ready to build from silence, say so the others walking this road can find you.